there's that assumption. There's also, it's like the white guy, black woman. There's all this stuff. But what people don't understand is I was in the process of ruining my life.
Raise a glass to the past, present, and future you with actress Danielle Truitt as she dives into the beautiful complexities of life's journey through real, transparent conversation. All the women I've been made me into who I've been. Hey y'all, it's Danielle Truitt. Welcome back to another episode of All the Women I've Been. We are on season 3. Thank you for all of you that have been rocking with us this whole time, and welcome to anybody who's catching us for the first time. Thank you for subscribing, liking, sharing, and just getting these episodes and these conversations out to your community. Today we have a really special guest, one of my good friends. Some of you might know him. Every once in a while we have the fellas on the show, but some of you might know him if you're a sports fan. From a show called First Things First. He's one of the hosts, and it is Nick Wright. Yay! We're going to have a very cool conversation about fatherhood and marriage and all the things, so you guys can get to know him better. But he's one of my favorite girl dads, so I wanted to have him on the show today. Sit back, enjoy All the Women I've Been. Nick! Yay!
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for doing this. Can
I ask a question?
Yes.
I know you have to ask questions.
Of course.
Hey, because I've obviously watched this, but I haven't watched every episode.
Okay.
Am I the first male guest?
No, you're not.
Okay.
You are the one.
Overshoot it. You don't want to leave someone out.
Right, I know. You're the fourth.
Fourth? Okay.
Yeah,
all
you're
right.
the fourth. So every season, first season I only had one dude. And then second season I had 2.
Okay.
You're
there
my
we go.
fourth.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm honored.
You're
Thank
my
you for
first
having
white
me.
person though.
Oh, I'm the first white person, male or female?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You're my first white person, so you do get a first.
Okay, there we go. Well, thank you for having me.
I love it. So today I wanted to, part of the reason why I wanted to have you on is because I want to talk a lot about your family. I want to talk a lot about fatherhood and you being a husband. I think you and Danielle and your family, you guys have a very unique story. I even got an idea to do a sitcom about your family. If anybody else tries to,
It's
was
copywritten.
my idea first.
Yes, intellectual property. That's correct.
Intellectual property.
Yeah.
But I think you guys have a unique story. As if you've been watching the podcast, you know from when I interviewed Danielle, me and Danielle have known each other since we were 12. We both grew up in Sacramento. We were like kind of friends adjacent at that time. And then when I came to New York, we became really, really close. But I know Danielle, I know where she grew up, and then I met you and learned more about your background. And it seems serendipitous that you guys kind of ended up together because you came from like 2 completely different parts of the world, or of the country, and different backgrounds and
all of it.
And all of it, yeah, and everything.
So I could start. You want the full background is I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. Lived there my whole life. Went to college in Syracuse, went back to Kansas City and did radio there,
right.
Which then took, was my career. Danielle is from Sacramento, California, moved around a bunch, ended up in Kansas City, and we met at a nightclub she was promoting when I was 20. Maybe we might have met when I was 22, but we didn't, or maybe I had. It's probably 22 because I was right when the summer back from college. Yeah. And then after quite the arduous pursuit, which we can get into if you want to, we got together when I was 23, and on our first date, she brought the kids.
Yeah.
And it was...
What was that like for you at 23 years old?
So I was like so incredibly into Danielle, and it was a really long process of me trying to get her to go out with me. Right. which was, I give the short version of it. She was the promoter at this nightclub every Thursday night. So I went every Thursday, and the only card I had to play was I have a cool job. I have a radio show.
Right.
So I would just be like, you should promote your night on my radio show.
Okay.
Which would have been a terrible investment. No, my radio show at the time had very few listeners, and the listeners were exclusively older white guys.
So they weren't.
And this is not the clientele, but it was like the only in.
Yeah.
And I ended up becoming friends with her sister, hanging out with her sister, at the club or whatever. But I would just go every Thursday to try to flirt with her. And then one Thursday I showed up, and the club was boarded up. Someone had broken in or whatever. They shut it down.
Oh, okay.
And then I see her months later in a different part of town promoting a different club. And in that moment, I had thought I had my college girlfriend lived in Seattle.
Okay.
And I thought she and I might stay together, get back together, whatever.
Okay.
So I had applied 1 in 100 thing for a radio job in Seattle.
Okay.
After she and I had broken up, that Seattle radio station called me and was like, we're really interested. We'd like, to talk to you about taking the job. The day I found out about that, I bumped into her again. And I said to her, I lied. I was like,
sometimes you gotta lie.
I was like, what's messed up is I've lived in Kansas City my entire life, and I move away in 2 weeks, and you and I have never been on a date. And it was partial lie, but partial I just assumed I would get the job. And so that then eventually led to her agreeing to go out with me.
Right.
And I didn't get the job in Seattle. And she told me to meet her at this pizza place by my house. And when she was there, there was either a 3-year-old and a 10-year-old. No, definitely not 3. 2-year-old and 9-year-old. And I'm just like, okay, I just was just gonna roll with it.
Right.
And me and the 2-year-old Diora, who is still my favorite person in the whole world, she's a baby. So I just made faces with her. And then Danielle and I that night went out afterwards on a real date. And the fact of the matter is we've been together ever since.
Well, I think the unique thing about it is that, when people are single and they're dating and stuff like that, they have all these notions about, what they want. They have their list of, he gotta do this, he gotta have this, or she gotta have this and that, or I'm not dating anybody with kids, or they have all these.
So I guess I think I was too, I didn't really care. I shouldn't say I didn't care, but it wasn't, I was 23, I had never really, even considered the possibility of dating someone with kids.
Right.
And so it was just this person that I really like that I think is, and at this point, I'm not going to lie, it's more, I didn't really know her. Right, it's just more superficial than anything else. Right. I'm like, this is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in person.
That's how you should feel about your wife.
Well, and she, for the record, is way better looking now than when we first met. But some of that's, she's aged gracefully, and she also has a little more money. All of that. Right. And so it wasn't like I had never. I think at some point you get to an age where you date people, and it's like, oh, this person, you wait it.
Yeah.
I had never waited.
Right.
I was just, it never even occurred to me to be
Right.
like dating someone who lives on the moon. It had never occurred to me. And so then it's just like, okay, and then we were instantly, I don't know if she talked about this or not, that night, at our second date of the night, when it was just her and I, we fell in love. And so, it wasn't a thing. And so it's just okay, I fell in love with this person, they have kids.
Right.
And so and Diora was, like I said, Diora's was the 2-year-old, now is 19-year-old. Gonna be 20 soon. Oh my goodness. You know what I mean?
How did you know? How did you know that you were in love with her?
It's gonna sound so corny, and just is what it is. We left that pizza place, and as we were walking out, I think we both thought the night's over.
Okay.
And And she'll claim to this day the reason she called me was because she got there and realized, shit, I left my wallet. And she knew I was close by and we were friendly and I'd been wanting to go out, and she had enough money for the kids' food, but wanted her own sandwich, and hit me up and was like, Nick, come. Now, and so that's what that's that part of the story.
She's like, I'll pay for this food.
That part of the story I heard.
Oh my God.
I didn't hear until years later, and when I first heard it, I was like, that's a fucking lie. But she's told it so earnestly forever. I'm like, oh, maybe that is what happened.
I believe it.
And so,
I know my friend.
and so, but at the end of it, when we were outside of the side door of this pizza place, we hugged. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but it was like earth-shattering. It was like, oh, hold on. And I know she felt whatever I felt, she felt, because she said kind of her entire demeanor changed. Not that it was bad, but her demeanor changed, and she said, if I can get my sister to watch the kids, do you want to go out on a real date in an hour? And I was like, yeah. And there's this Italian spot that I went to all the time that friends of mine ran, and I called them, and I was like, guys, you got to pretend I'm a really big deal. I'm bringing a girl. It's important. And they basically gave me the fucking Goodfellas treatment. They're like, oh, Nikki, you're here. You want your regular booth, blah, blah, blah. And so, like, from that moment on, I'm just in it. Yeah. And I'm the only father my kids have ever had. There's no father involved other than me. So there wasn't really like a complicating factor of like, oh, like I'm going to be a stepdad. I went from being their mom's boyfriend to their dad with like, and I'm not saying that was like instant. That of course took time, but at no point was there like, I think that was maybe remove some of the potential friction. It was just me. I was there, and Demonze, our oldest, who now is my co-host of my podcast and my best friend. He was understandably super skeptical of me early on. Yeah. But Diora was a baby. And I taught Diora the alphabet. I taught Diora how to read. And like Diora, and so Diora and I were instantly super tight. And Demonze slowly, once Demonze trusted me, of course, we were good. And
he's a boy.
Right. Yeah. And so like, we were just a family. And it was, and then you have a bunch of questions. I've been talking for 20 minutes. The thing that, and I've said this publicly a couple times, but I'll say it for the rest of my life. That there have been a lot of people that have, in an attempt to be kind, when they hear our story, say, "Oh man, like some version of." What an amazing thing I did for Danielle, or this amazing thing I did for the kids.
Poor woman,
right? And there's an assumption that I had money, which when Danielle and I started dating, I was making $8 an hour. And 6 months after we started dating, I signed my first radio contract, which was for $23,800 a year. And this is not in fucking 1970. This is in 2009.
Right.
There's that assumption. There's also, it's like the white guy, black woman. There's all this stuff. But what people don't understand is I was in the process of ruining my life. I had been on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, won $50,000.
What?
And you never know that about me?
I did not know that. You were on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Yeah, it was like 2 months out of college.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me because you're so smart.
And they send you the check for the full amount. You're responsible for the taxes.
How old were you?
22.
This is before you met her.
It was I was on it right before I met her. I probably got the check right around the time before.
How much did you win?
$50,000. Oh my God. $50,000 was making $8 an hour, but the moral of the story is I bought one thing ever. I bought a TV, and every other dollar of it went to gambling, expensive dinners, and strip clubs. In
like a 22-year-old.
10 months, it was at zero, and it was at zero without having set aside the money I owed for taxes. So I was really like in
spiraling.
I was in this really, I had this, I was always gonna be who I am professionally unless I fucked it up.
Right.
Like it was, from the time I was 10 years old, I was like, I'm going to be the biggest sportscaster in America. I'm not there yet, but I should get there. And I was gonna do it. The only thing that screwed up was me.
Right.
And I was in the process of doing it. And the only reason I didn't was because I met her and was like, shit, this person I love is working literally 3 jobs simultaneously to take care of these kids that I now also love, and I'm blowing $1,200, $800, $1,400 gambling. And so it made me a snap adult. And so like, yes, it was great. I gave Danielle some stability she needed, and my relationship with my kids is the greatest thing ever, and we've helped each other in that regard. But it was such a two-way. That's what the serendipity of it was that we both really were what the other person needed, which is why it wasn't ever as weird to me as it was to other people that I moved to Texas and I'm enrolling my 14-year-old son I'm a 29-year-old I'm a white 29-year-old enrolling my black 14-year-old son in school.
Right.
Like it didn't.
Texas.
It never felt as weird to me as I think it did to the outside
watching.
world.
Yeah,
it was just like my life.
Yeah. So basically, you guys both met each other at the perfect time, because she could have went down a certain path. You could have.
But she would have said it was the worst time because she had just sworn off dating, like before we got together.
That's also when it happens. Like as soon as you swear off something, like I'm gonna quit the industry, or I'm not dating ever again, and then you meet the perfect person for you, or you get the perfect job. This podcast evidently has something in common with my wife, because you said I was your first white guest. Yeah. I was also the first white person she ever dated. So that also had like maybe a complicating factor. Yes. So I had the honor and privilege of being a part of you guys' vow renewal, which was absolutely beautiful, gorgeous. It was the wedding that you guys didn't really get to have when you first got married. The thing that made it so beautiful is because of how blended your family is, because there's so many different dynamics to it. And I really thank you for, just shedding light on the fact that you guys lifted each other up. It's not about one person coming in saving the day. It's like both of you guys helped each other rise to where you're at now. And it is something I think that is important for people who are married or not married to see. It's an encouragement. Well, and it also would be, I would be being dishonest if I didn't acknowledge that part of what has allowed me in certain rooms, or allowed me an instant credibility with some of the big-time athletes that I either now have relationships with, or when I was doing local media used to cover, wasn't the fact that I had a gorgeous black girlfriend, fiance, wife. Like there was as far as, it's not just like kind of an ephemeral, like, oh, I was making bad. There was a real practical career thing she did for me just by being herself that gave me, a real credibility and so in a way that certainly accelerated my professional rise and allowed me to like break stories or know people or whatever, because I was, I cover basically football, the NFL and the NBA. Those are vastly majority black sports, and there's just there's a different
feeling young athletes, you know what I mean, will have about you in certain things. And so, like, I am self-aware enough to say, like, I didn't earn that. That wasn't hard work or whatever. That was good luck by me. And somebody, like, I just started working with different financial people. And like, one of the first things they asked me to start working together, like, so what type of, prenup type of thing do you have? I'm like, well, there's no prenup. When we got together, we were both broke.
We built this.
And there was nothing to protect from each other. There's no money. And then they're like, okay, they give you listen, like, love your wife, and I'm sure everything's always going to be, you guys are always going to love each other, and everything's going to be fine. But she's not in the car right now, so let's just, talk.
Let's be real.
Let's whatever it is. And the answer is, like, it would be, she and I will be together forever. But if we weren't, she deserves everything she would get, because it all exists because of, like it doesn't, like, it all, like,
you guys built it
we
together.
built it together. And by the way, that also applies, for the record, to her store. Like,
absolutely,
she leaves me. Half that store's mine.
Absolutely,
I hope she understands.
Yeah. Trentage is half of Nick's. Okay,
that wouldn't. I'll be honest. I don't think I'd get it. I don't think I would get it. Yeah, I don't think I'd get it. But yes, I really feel that way, and I'm not just like, I think that for me and for us, that's like obvious. Like we just were teammates forever. And the thing you said about the vow renewal was nice. Like it was a special room of people that only she and I could have, like, brought together.
Right. Yeah. No, it was beautiful. I think so. I want to go back and talk about one thing that you said was, you met Danielle. She had children. Yeah. You became their father. You're the father that they know. You guys have a daughter between the both of you, which Correct. Is your youngest. But what was the it takes a very special person, in my opinion, a man in particular, to not only step in the shoes of a father when a Sure. child doesn't have one, but not only fill the shoes, but to go the extra mile and actually adopt the child. So to where that child is, in your heart they're your child, but also on paper. Their fathers are alive. So it's not that their fathers are dead. So I'm curious to know, what was that process like? Like, did you talk to their fathers? Like, what was, like, how did that happen?
So when Danielle had Demonte, who's our oldest, mm-hmm. she was a child, and Demonte's father, biological father, was basically like, this, mm-hmm. We're not gonna be together or involved,
right? And
there were never any illusions or broken promises, whatever it is, what it was. And they really had very, 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 very limited contact forever. My older daughter's situation was different, and I'm not going to get into that out of respect to her, but neither person in that was a factor at all. Neither one of those guys had any interest in being a father to these children, and they were my children.
What made you want to go through the process of adoption?
The initial thing was, I got terrified when Danielle was pregnant with Deanna, our youngest. Mm-hmm. The doctor has to tell you all of the, I guess it's like a legally or Hippocratic oath, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Has to be like, hey, just so you know, these things can happen during pregnancy and during the birth, all of it. And that shit terrified me. Because he made it seem like, hey man, it's 50-50, like your wife may die, may not. I'm sure he was saying it's 99-1, but, I was...
Especially if you're having a child in your 30s.
Yeah, and so I was terrified at the idea of my kids being split up. And I needed there to be documentation that would make it clear, like, those kids, because at the time, Demonze wasn't 18 yet.
Right, so if something were to
happen to Danielle, like, I would have no way.
Right.
And at this point, we are married, we have moved together, like, we're not early in me being these kids' dad. Like, I have been their dad for a long time.
Right.
And so it was really just like a legal thing. I didn't even feel the need to. Like, from a emotional perspective or whatever, it was like, oh shit, I'm being irresponsible because they consider me their dad. They call me Padre and Pops. Like, the dad's never been a word we use a lot sometimes. But this is something that needs to be done. And I didn't know what a arduous task it could be without the biological personnel being involved in it. And it was a long enough process that for Demonze, I adopted legally Demonze when he was an adult. I did that. There was no reason to do that except for, I guess, twofold. One was I wanted to, but the other one was if something happened to me, I didn't want there to be any question that he gets a third of my shit. Exactly. And you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want, like, right now, Demonze and his sisters are in a great spot. But what, you know what I mean? What if in 20 years he and his little sister have a huge falling out?
Right.
So that was that. For Diora, she wasn't 18, but it was a process. But it wasn't, I don't know, I have very, very, like, strong feelings about what family is and isn't. And sometimes I think it leads to me being, like, maybe not as good of a brother as I should be. Certainly, like, I don't...
Well, what do you mean? What do you
I just don't... I think blood relation is random and bullshit.
It's relative.
And I just don't, like, I love my sister, and she and I actually now are really good friends. But there was a period of my life where we weren't. And I think my kind of casual disregard for blood relation is probably one of the reasons I didn't fix that sooner. Because I was like, you're like, I have my family.
I
just don't think, like, anyone that, like, would argue, like, Deanna is more my child than my other two kids. It's just like, based on fucking what? Yeah. Like, I've actually known her the least amount of time.
Was she 11?
I just don't. I've just never bought that, and I've never like. It's just never been how I don't know how my mind's been wired, and maybe it's I don't know, but it's just never how I've thought about it.
No, I think it's cool that you think that way. I mean, I know a lot of people, the older that you get, for a lot of people, they do feel strongly like blood is thicker than water, like it's all that when you're growing up, but then you start to mature, you start to have your own family, you start to go through certain things, and you realize that your chosen, the people that you choose, or the people that come into your life later, end up being more of a support and more of who you want by your side.
Danielle's grandparents. So I'll share something this isn't dark, but it's very personal. So we had a very close friend over the summer pass. Yeah. And I have really, really, really struggled with it. But I have kind of not it's been totally in private and because it's not my grief, because it was as close as I was to this person for my youngest daughter and for my wife. This was their person. Yeah. So I owe it to them to fight through it. I say all that because it has made me so worried about one of the, maybe my favorite person in the world other than my wife and kids is, my mom, I should say, Dad, is my wife's grandfather, who's 94. And I'm so, like, I think all the time, I'm like, oh man,
what's gonna happen
when he, like, and he's in great shape, and hopefully it's in a very long time somehow, but I'm like, man, that technically is her grief as well, but I don't know if I'm gonna be strong enough in that, like that. Yeah. So, like, I say that, I tell that anecdote because we have no blood relation, but obviously, like, first time I ever met him, he came out of his bathroom.
I was gonna ask, how was that?
First time meeting him, this is all right. This is I got dark and sad there for a moment. Let me clear up, and because this is an unbelievable story, an unbelievable story.
Now, this is he just said, y'all, this man is 94
94, and Danielle and I have been together for 17 years. Okay. We'd been together for 2-ish when I met him. So let's just say he's in this story, call him 80.
And he's seen a lot of life in that time.
And unbelievable story. Man signed up for the Air Force when he was 17, did his 30 years, which was the max back then, retired when he was 47, has never had another job. Has been retired for 47 years. Did a bunch of cool stuff, went to school, traveled, a bunch of stuff, but has never had another job. He's the greatest. But, so this is, 15-ish years ago. The guy's, 79, 80 years old. And we go to Sacramento, and Danielle's like, we've got to go to my grandparents' house. You have to meet them. And we have to go there early in the morning. My grandmother's going to cook. And early in the morning meant like 6. Because they have an insane schedule. They go to the gym at like 1 a.m. Then they go to sleep. They go to the gym together at like midnight or 1 a.m. because nobody's there. They're the best. But regardless. So we get over there. It's early in the morning. Grandmother's in the kitchen. And it is a very cute but small house. 1-floor small house in Oak Park, Sacramento. And I'm talking with them. Nice to meet you. Talking with just the grandmother. And after me being there about 20 minutes, this big barrel of a man comes out of seemingly this hallway, but it's where the bathroom was, in undershirt and shorts or underwear, and says, "Who's this John Brown white boy making all this noise in my house?" And I say, "Hi, Mr. Jones, my name's Nick, nice to meet you." And he said, "Give me a second." I said, "Okay."
That's just like a black man to come out in his underwear because it's his house.
And he says, "Give me a second." And he goes back to his bedroom, gets dressed, comes back, and he goes, "I have a question." He goes, "Do you have life insurance?" I'm like, "Yes, sir, I think." He's like, "Is my granddaughter the beneficiary?" And at this point, I think I'm lying because I don't know how she would have been. I was like, "Yes, sir." And he's like, "Okay, meet me outside in 10 minutes. Like, all right.
He's like, 'cause I'm about to kill you. No.
Kinda. I go outside, and he has a ladder set up, leaning up against their roof, and hedge clippers. And he's like, "You see those trees? The branches are blocking our satellite dish, and TV won't work. I need you to fix it." And I gotta tell you something.
I love it.
Here's the thing. I have built a very small empire based off, if nothing else, my total inability and allergy to manual labor. Like, people will ask, "Why do you work as hard as you do?" Because I don't want to fucking lift anything. I don't want to cut lawn. I don't want to shovel snow. I want to be successful enough to there are professionals for all of these things. I don't want to move the couch. I don't want to do it. And I certainly...
I feel like you and Danielle might get into it about that.
I certainly don't know how to trim branches. Certainly not from elevation while leaning.
You did it.
But I was like, okay. And I got up there and I did it. And they have pictures of it. Everybody thinks it's such a funny story.
See the things love will make you do.
Well, yeah, I mean, I couldn't. I mean, it was a challenge.
Right,
it was a challenge this man was issuing me and seeing if I would do it. And so I did it. And he and I now we travel together. We're tight as can be. But yeah, that's how I met him.
But listen, whenever the Lord sees fit to bring him home, it will be your loss as well. And it's something that you guys can go through together.
Yeah, no, I get it. But it's weird when you end up feeling so close to someone that someone else brings, you know what I mean, brings into your life. That's all. But yeah. But go ahead.
I love that. So, since we were talking about fatherhood and how much your kids mean to you, how do you think fatherhood changed you, especially meeting Danielle and her children so young?
I think it's kind of been a sliding scale. Like I was a father when I was a kid, and not a kid the way Danielle was a kid, but I was a pretty idiotic 20-something-year-old, and I was a father. So like at that time, I think the way it snap changed me was I became way less reckless with money. Mm-hmm. That was like the immediate initial change.
Yeah.
Everything else has just kind of been learn as you go and try to eventually set the right example. So like I've always, I don't know, because I think I'm a really good dad, but I also think that I have no idea what I'm doing.
Right.
I just think we're just kind of guessing. And so like I've tried to really demonstrate to my kids the importance of hard work. I think I've done a good job of that. I've tried to really demonstrate to my kids the importance of like being there for them. And I've tried to really demonstrate to my kids how to, for my son, it's an example of how to act, and for my daughters, it's an example of how to be treated, which is, I'm not going to act like I don't yell, and I'm not going to act like I'm perfect at not fighting around the kids or anything. But I never ever liked someone like being intentionally mean to their wife.
Yes.
So like or like name calling or the shit that you do, not to like prove a point, but like because you're so angry, it'll like cut them. And so I've really hoped that my daughters have seen me like eyes twitching angry, and they've never seen me like what I would consider like disrespect their mother.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because I think that is I think like once that line gets crossed, it's like almost anything in life. Like once you do it once, you don't feel nearly as bad about doing it again, and you know what I mean, repeatedly. And so like I don't know if that really answers the question, but I've just tried to like this sounds arrogant, I don't mean it to. I hope my daughters husbands, thank you, that's the word I was looking for. I hope my daughters demand their husbands respect them as much as I've shown them I respect their mom. And I hope my son learns what, even in the face of, like, this is where I am a bit of a sexist. Mm-hmm. Like, I think women are allowed to be meaner in arguments than men are. I just think it's...
You're like the perfect guy.
No, I'm not. In the moment, I don't. In the moment, I don't. In the moment, I get my feelings hurt and I get really upset.
Yeah.
But...
We're more emotional. I think it's because women are more emotional. Sometimes we will say things out of emotion.
Some fucked up stuff, man.
Of course.
Yeah, I'll look into the camera. Sometimes they say some fucked up stuff, man.
Men are more calculated, though. So if a man, I feel like if a man says something to cut you in that way, it's not just...
I just feel like it's...
Emotion.
Right, so
it's like calculated.
My buddy used to call it the nuclear option. Like, everybody, if you're with someone long enough, you know...
Right.
The thing or things you could say,
set them off.
or the thing or things you could say that will haunt them.
Yes.
Like truly hurt them.
Absolutely.
You know what it is because they've shared deep personal things with you.
Absolutely.
And going to that, I just think it should probably never happen for anyone. But it is. I just think that's where like. There's more of an onus on, because I wouldn't do it like...
Well, for me, and this is probably my Christian values coming out, I think why it's more detrimental is because the husband is the protector.
That's right.
He's the protector. So if, and any male, and not even just a husband, a brother, a father, you know, like men are the protectors of the women, of the children. So if they're the ones, you know, spewing
you just
things,
like that, right? And so I don't know. This was probably not the answer to your question. Maybe the answer is I don't know how I've changed. Like I'm mostly this. I talked about how I was, you know, went broke gambling. You'd be like, oh Nick, do you not gamble anymore?
You became more responsible.
No, gamble all the time. And by the way,
well, you're
I don't know if I'm yes and no. People are like, oh, what did like? Yeah, I mean, I probably just like achieved my way out of it. I just kept getting bigger jobs and making more money to where I could still gamble around the level I was before, but instead of it being, oh, that's 2 weeks
not
pay.
Causing you to go
right,
broke.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so I don't even know that I fixed those things. There's a lot of things that aren't great. Like in order for this to be any good, I had to drink a glass of wine. There was no chance.
For your anxiety?
There was just no chance I was going to have like a vulnerable, honest conversation without, you love it or not. The other way to say it is like, oh, that's like one of the key steps of a drinking problem. And so like
I love the fact that you wanted to have
I wanted this to be good for you and for whatever it is, but like, so, and my kids see that. My kids see that like when I have like real like heart to hearts with them, I usually have a glass of wine beforehand or whatever. Like, so those are things like one is not necessarily proud of, but you just try to like present to them your earnest, honest self, your best, and make them always know how much you love them. Yeah. And be like, hey, take a lot of my good stuff, some of my bad stuff, and and
now
do it.
John Mayer has a song, and I hear he's an asshole. I don't know him. But I love this song, and the lyrics of the song say, fathers, be good to your daughters. Daughters will love like you do. They will become lovers that turn into mothers. So mothers, be good to your daughters too. So do you feel like there is, and like this podcast is called All the Women I've Been. So the focus of this podcast a lot is on women,
of course, girls,
healing trauma, overcoming the things, that a lot of us have had to endure, and a lot of us don't have great relationships with our fathers, and you can see the difference. You can see that I had a father who for a lot of years was present, but was in the home but not present.
Sure.
And before that he was on drugs, so it affected me and it damaged me in certain ways where I have had some struggles in relationships and, you know, things like that, because I didn't have a father who I felt saw me. I didn't have a father who I felt took the time to understand my emotions, you know, to sit with me in them, the things that I didn't understand. It was more, he was present when it was time for me to be disciplined, but it wasn't present for the everyday, you know, things, emotionally available, you know what I'm saying? And so I see some of my friends who had emotional available fathers, who had good relations. Like you said, Dior is one of your best friends. Like, she's your best friend, you know? That touches me as a friend of you guys' family, to see the way that you interact with your daughters, because it's something I didn't see in my home, and something I didn't necessarily get. And I don't have daughters, I have sons, you know, so it's, when I'm around you guys and I'm with you guys, I'm always, I'm watching and I'm seeing the way, the connection that you and Dior have. I'm seeing, you know, Deanna, the way she negotiates things with you. And so I guess my question to you, I mean, part of it is a compliment to you, you know,
thank you.
that I admire you for the father that you are to your daughters. It's a beautiful thing to watch and to see. And I'm excited to see what kind of women they will become, because they have one less giant to fight. So women like myself and your wife, who, you know, we are amazing women. You know, we've pulled ourselves up.
You've had to deal with.
But we've had to deal with certain things that Deanna and Dior never will have to.
Yeah, so you know, it's tough, because I think that it is really, I think the mother-daughter relationship is such like a unique one, in that it is, again, I don't know how to answer a question directly, so I just go where my head goes. Father-son relationships are usually actually pretty straightforward. The little kid, who do you want to be when you grow up? My dad. You know what I mean? Whatever you do. I remember being a little boy and my dad, like, falling asleep while watching TV, and me trying to, like, match his breathing. You know what I mean? Like that, whatever. Like, you're just a little boy, like, whatever. My dad can beat up your dad type of stuff.
Right.
Then there is a period of time where you literally want to fight him.
Right. Oh, yeah. You're like, literally, I can challenge you.
Correct. And, like, almost every guy I know either actually fought their dad, or they're like, oh no, I know the moment that it almost happened, right?
Yeah.
And then, on the other side of it, it's like, oh, okay, we're like just two men. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like we can have a good relationship together and, you know, learn from each other, whatever it is. Like, that's usually the trajectory. Mothers and daughters is so much more complicated, because it's like, you know, I want to help you in this regard, but then it's like, no, you're controlling me, and it's like, no, it's like this, and that, by the way, from best I can tell,
jealousy too between mothers.
Right, and best I can tell, this shit just goes on forever. I just think it's like, oh, like one's 80 and the other's 60, and it's just like the same shit, and it's just like alternating between best friends and like that bitch, and like so like that's really weird. So fathers, daughters, it's for me, trying to recognize the most important relationship you have is with your mother, because she is the one who is setting the example of how to be a woman in this world that I will never know.
Yeah.
So my relationship with my daughters, a lot of it is kind of trying to balance the ecosystem of their relationship with their mom. So like if I think there is something their mom is being too harsh on, I'll try to balance it.
Now, does that sometimes end up undermining what
I gotta tell you, I'm sure it does. But I'm just telling you, but it goes in the other direction as well.
Okay.
If there's certain things that I think my wife is being too lax on,
okay,
I will knowingly and intentionally overreact. Like, in a way to be like, this is unacceptable. And so it's because there are certain things for my daughters. There's like a few things like, okay, homework, basically things related to school and things related to money. Those are the two areas of their lives where I'm the starring parent.
Yeah.
Everything else that happens to them, I'm the supporting actor.
Okay.
And so, there's not a lot of things that, aside from like maybe those two specific areas, that what I feel or think or say is the most important thing. So, I'm really just like shadow boxing with their general psyche about how things are going, what it is, because what I do, one of my number one parenting beliefs is your kids cannot be more worried about telling you something than they are of the world at large.
Absolutely.
Because
you should be a safe space.
Safe space even when you have fucked up immeasurably.
Yes.
And so like I know for me, the two biggest there's once with law, it was law. When I was in high school, I got popped with weed. Okay. But once, the one time I went to jail for, a few hours, and the one time where I was in legitimate, danger because I owed people money that I shouldn't have. Both times I was so afraid of making my mom sad, while also being so afraid of making my dad angry that I didn't tell either one of them.
Right. And
I really got myself in terrible situations.
Right.
Tried to pay a lawyer with steaks I was selling. That don't work. Fucking took the job selling steaks just to pay the lawyer and then didn't make. That was a disaster. I sold steaks door to door.
I was one of those people.
Steakhouse quality meats. Sorry. Can I interest you in 72 filet mignons? They're in the freezer in the back of my truck. That's a true story.
That's
and then owed someone money that I was afraid of, and borrowed money from a far scarier person to pay him. And when it feels like it was $1,000, which is a real amount of money, but it's also not. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a real amount of money, but it's also hey, should you go in debt to what seems like it's the Armenian mob in upstate New York to pay it? Or should you call your parents and say, I fucked up? And I didn't. And so I also probably to a fault with my older kids, I'm not big punishment on, I'm more likely to punish minor errors than major ones, because I don't want them to feel like
they can't take the big
I can't
stuff.
tell you.
Yeah.
And that is my.
But our generation, most of us, all of us, for the most part, did that. We were afraid of our parents.
Afraid.
Yeah.
Legit afraid,
yeah.
and so it's just, and so that part is I also probably have more when you use probably one of the things I'm not as good with my daughter as my son is, I'm just more our son was a college basketball player, got hurt, stopped going to school, worked on his own, and then just basically was I'm going to figure it out on my own. And we let him do it. And I knew he was the guy was building fences every day for very little money, living in the Midwest by himself, figuring out life. Yeah. I was like, man, your apartment, you're living with like 3 dudes and dogs, and it's gross, and you're broke, and but he did that for 2 years, and got no money, and basically became a grown ass man that now I partner with in real business stuff.
Love it.
Yeah, but this is I almost assuredly would never allow my daughters to live that way.
Well, because he's a guy.
Right, that's why I said I'm a sex. That's the sexist part of it. But it was good for him.
Yeah.
But like, both of my daughters know like they can just ask me for money, and I'll be like, yeah,
Danielle is softer for her son. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like that's boys and their moms, dads and their.
Yeah, but so like, am I depriving my daughters of like that? Because like, I don't know, but like, I just know also, and again, this is probably. Now we're maybe too into my psychology. Part of being like, kind of like, I scroll Instagram, and like I came across a video once of like this girl getting married, and part of like at her wedding, she gave her wealthy father his credit card back because she had married someone over. And I don't know what message that video was trying to send, but the message I received is that father's badass, man. That girl was like 27 years old, and he was just like, you know what? You're my baby girl. You're free rolling
because technically
for whatever.
Your father should be a covering to you until you get married.
Again, I don't know, and I've been talking to you. The audience is going to find this very interesting. My wife is here. And I have intentionally not looked her way the entirety of the time because I don't know what any of the reactions have been. But like, part of me was like, no, like I'm a super successful, not famous, but like famous in certain circles guy. My daughters should be bawling. Like that's kind of how I feel. Yeah. And my son should like, do it all on his own. Like, I know that's not really right, but in my head...
Why is it not right? I think you actually have a good mindset because they have Danielle to be hard on them. Me and Danielle talk all the time about our kids. And we talk about her and Dior's relationship.
Sure.
And she's there to challenge Dior, to... You know what I'm saying? To challenge some of her mindsets. Why are you doing this? You need to be doing this. That's that's what a mother should do for her daughter. Like you said, you're teaching your daughter how to become a woman, how to carry yourself as a woman. That's kind of her place. Your place, you have a different place. Like you said, you guys are your partners. So both of you can't be both good cops and one.
Yeah, no, maybe that's right. I just feel like probably I shouldn't have such relatively disparate philosophies for kids based on if they're boys or girls. Right. But I'm just being honest. Like there are certain things that I, kind of what I would call like old-fashioned. There's I don't have a lot of old-fashioned beliefs, but there are certain ones I have, and a lot of them have to do with
the gentleness and the softness that you show your daughters. I think it is a good thing. I think it's something that they'll look for in a partner, and I think it's something they should have when they marry. If they marry or when they marry. Too many of us had fathers that were harsh, that were, that they weren't gentle with us. So then when we're trying to find a partner, a lot of women look for their dad. Like even when you don't know you are, a lot of women marry their dads or they date their dads because that's the only male kind of figure that they have. And so when you don't have a gentle father who's gonna I've seen you reprimand your kids, or your daughters. I've seen you do it, but the way that you do it, it's in a way that that love is there. And even with Demonze, you're pushing him to be great and to be a man, which is what he should be. Danielle spoils Demonze.
No,
that's her baby.
Oh, okay.
So you know what I'm saying? I feel like you guys are doing a good job of managing.
Well, that's nice of you. Well, thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna end, but I do want to talk briefly about just
the Kansas City Chiefs. You told me this was going to be. This is damn playoffs.
We
you
know.
told me this was going to be a Super Bowl.
Right.
Go ahead, sorry.
I want to talk briefly about how you guys navigate being not just an interracial couple, but you parenting Black children and the things that they might face, like, you know, like Deanna being at school. I've heard some things that have happened. Like, how do you guys navigate those waters?
All right, again, I'm going to tell you, I don't know, whenever, I remember vividly living in Houston, and the George Zimmerman verdict came in, the man who killed Trayvon Martin. And that was, without a question, the first time my wife saw me, not like tear up, I went to my bedroom, and I ugly cried. And she came in there and talked to me, and I was like, and I remember saying to her, I was like, why? Because she was fine. She was seemingly fine. And our son, DeMonze, was like around the exact same age Trayvon was when he was killed. I think, but whatever, within a couple years, definitely. And Danielle said something very, very profound. And this is her quote, not mine. But she said, babe, you've only been Black for a few years. I've been Black my whole life. And I'm not Black, and I don't
But I know
consider
what
that.
she
But what
meant
she
by
was
that.
saying was, this was such a stomach punch to me, because it was the first thing like this that has happened since I've had Black children, and could truly feel some of the pain, and that she had almost developed a callus to it. And so that was like, so how do I am like a hyper kind of socially or culturally aware person. I would say of everyone, my people, I was doing something somewhere where someone's like, tell us a fact about you that people wouldn't, suspect. And I'm like, I'm actually kind of an expert on U.S. history from Reconstruction to the end of the Civil Rights Act. Like, that 100 years of American history has always been like an area of study for me that I find really interesting. So I've always been, I would say, more aware, not than most white people, but than most people, about the history of race in America and the different things that have contributed to so many different things. So I walked into the relationship eyes wide open about race in America. And I think I actually probably, between Danielle and I, as the two parents, have probably taught the kids as much, if not more, than anyone in their lives about, the process from slavery to now of what it is meant to be a Black American throughout history. So that none of that is the cliche, oh, I'm learning to do my daughter's hair, that's not been a thing for us. What definitely has been a thing for us from an interracial relationship perspective is Danielle and I were both parented very differently. Yes. When we were kids, we were parented differently, and to everything you've said, that informs how you parent your kids.
Right.
And there are, certain things that maybe I'll be totally honest, I never really know, I shouldn't say disconnect, but is the total divergence more based on the fact that Danielle grew up Black and I grew up white, or that Danielle grew up under less affluent circumstances than I grew up? Because I think sometimes very often if you looked at Appalachia versus the inner city, it's there's a lot these things have way more to do with how much money you have than race. But then there are definitely certain cultural things that are definitely has nothing to do with money. It's like, oh, okay, like black kids are taught to be way more polite than white kids are.
Absolutely.
And that's got nothing to do with money. That's just like I'm not a sociologist. There's different, the audience doesn't care about my thoughts on that, but whatever it is. And so I defer to her on things that I can tell, like, she's dead certain she's right about.
Yes.
And we don't really have a lot of, like, foot down moments, meaning, like, fuck that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is what's happening here. We
Right.
rarely are like that diametrically opposed, but there are real, again, I don't want to talk about my kids' business too much, but one of our kids has a, how do I put this the right way and keep it somewhat anonymous? One of our kids has a bunch of different opinions on how they want to do their hair.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't know. Like, seems like whatever you want's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife feels very strongly
Mm-hmm.
that what they want to do is not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an instance where I'm like, I gotta tell you, I probably, I rarely play this one, but I gotta kind of play the white dad card and be like, I don't fucking know. Like, I guess, like, my vote doesn't really count on this because I don't totally get it. Now, to Deanna, our youngest, who is, she's not my skin tone, but she's close to my skin tone.
Yeah.
She has a totally different, she has a different type of, tough goes the wrong word. There are, I think, pluses and minuses that come with her skin tone.
Yeah.
Unfortunate reality is one of the theoretical pluses is she's probably treated differently because people don't know she's black all the time.
Right.
One of the minuses is people don't know she's black all the time.
Yeah.
And so, like, I legitimately, like, there are certain things I think about, like, oh, okay, like, she went to summer camp and had extensions put in her hair and her hair braided. And I thought about it, and I was like, and she needed to do it because she was going to be there for 3 weeks and camp was dirty and, like, she wasn't going to be able to do her hair and all of it. I was like, man, she's going to show up at this camp, and I worry, like, a bunch of the white girls are going to be like, what are you doing?
In your hair, right.
And a lot of the black girls might be like,
why
is this right? And so, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just you know what I mean? A thing she's gonna have to.
And I know because that's my little buddy.
Yeah.
I know she's had instances where people have been like, "You're not black," or "Why is your mom black?" She's like, "I'm black." Like,
right.
What are you talking about?
And so like it's a different. So with her, she used to get really, really bothered when people said she looked like me. And some might say it's because I'm a guy or her mom's so much prettier than, I am handsome or whatever. All that's true. But I think a lot of it was she didn't want people to think she was white. Because she's not. Like, in America, if your mom's black, you're black. In America, if your grandparents black, you're black. Yeah. And she certainly definitively identifies black.
And speaking as a young girl who loved and adored her mom, I wanted to look just like my mom. I wanted to look just like my mom. My mom had this long hair all down her back that was real silky. I wanted that. My mom was short. When I got taller than her, I was devastated. When I couldn't fit her shoes anymore, I was devastated. I'm like, who am I? Like, I don't belong because I don't look just like my mom, Yeah. So that's probably a big part of it.
Right. And so there's all these things. And so they, like, what the funny thing about, and I know we're probably going too long. Funny thing about our family that I used to joke about is because Demonze is what I would call light skin.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
And Diora is and Damonze is, I mean, looks like central casting of, you know, rookie NBA player.
Yes. Yeah.
The look, he's 6'4", all of it, incredibly handsome, all this. Yeah. Diora is right. Diora is darker skinned than Danielle, and Deanna, like I said, is basically my color. And so, like, when we go out as a family, it does kind of look like Danielle and I were together, had a kid, broke up, she had a baby, I had a baby, and then we got back together and we're a family again. Because from the looks of it, even though Deanna is our biological child, Damonze looks more like a mix of Danielle and I than Deanna does. And so it's just like, I don't, you know, I feel there's certain elements of the blended family thing where like Deanna gets really pissed when people don't believe Diora's her sister. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's like Diora's her sister, and like when Deanna was little, when Deanna first was old enough to figure out, like, wait a minute. And she didn't even figure out the thing about, like, she didn't figure it out based on color. She figured out based on how old her brother was. Oh, she was like, hold on a second. You and mommy
haven't been married that long.
Right, haven't been together as long as he's been, and you know what I mean? So once those wheels got turning, she very briefly was like, had like a crisis of like, are they still my, you know, siblings or whatever? But yeah, I mean, everybody got to deal with different stuff. Yeah. And I think it's all like, they all three, because they're 7 years apart, each of them, they all have dealt with very different lives up to this point, which will also be helpful because they are super tight, all three of them, to where they can lean on each other. Absolutely. And you know what I mean? And they can have each other's back on that stuff, which is great. 2
more questions, we're done. What is the most loving thing you feel like you can do for your wife or be to your wife?
Oh, gosh. I mean, honestly, in practice, what I try, if she were to answer that question, she'd be like, he just buys me shit. But that's not the right, like, that is, the thing I should do, the right answer there is, and what I probably should do more of, is like, God, that's such a tough one. Because I wish I was better at it. Because like too often I think you're like, well, what I would like is this, so let me do that for them.
Right, but it's what they need. Yeah.
I mean, what I do to show love is try to protect her and take care of her in like 360 degrees. Yes. The thing that probably makes her feel the most loved is like me truly like listening to her and like empathizing with what she's talking with. My brain immediately in every situation goes to fix.
Solution.
Yeah, solution. And so like that sometimes it's not what necessarily I think makes her feel as loved as I want to, but I'm just always like, I want to fix this. Yeah. But like I think the right answer is probably just like, it sounds so corny, but like listening to her and being present with her. Yeah. What I do more often is just try to like make her life easy. Yeah. Which I think she appreciates, but is not probably the A1 thing I should be doing.
Cool. And last question, who is Nick Wright?
Oh, okay. I don't know, man. This is very interesting because whenever I talk about myself, all I talk about is me, the professional. Because who I am, like, is the thing that will be remembered about me, if anything, is, from a more than, the 7 people closest to me is what I've done and what I will do professionally. And so who Nick Wright is professionally is a guy who 30 years ago said, there's something I'm going to do, and up to this point has hit all the checkpoints, and I'll do it. I will one day, if you were to Family Feud style ask 100 people who is, the biggest sports talk guy in America, I'll be the number one answer. I'm not there yet, but I am now in a place where if you were to ask that question, I'd be like, when, it's like, and the number 7 answer with 2 votes, like
right.
Steve Harvey would hit the thing and my name would roll over. So that's where I've always looked. Who I am, like, as a person is, I don't know, man. Like, A plus dad, B plus husband, C plus son and brother, and try to like be better at those other ones. Like I really, 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 the most interesting thing about me is my family. And you said the sitcom, like there is a sitcom there also. The only profile, like I'm old, I'm 40, so like I still care about like actual newspapers and actual magazines. Like I still want the Washington Post profile written about me, but I don't want it. In my mind, they come to write the profile based on what I've done professionally, and they end up writing the story based on, wait, is this the only white 40-year-old with a 26-year-old, 19-year-old, and 11-year-old kids with this story from this place? Like, what is most unique and interesting about me is my family, and what has allowed me to potentially win that Family Feud thing that I want to win one day is my family, like I talked about at the beginning. And I wouldn't know you without them.
I know. I love that, and I love you.
All right, you too.
Thank you.
Of course,
so
absolutely.
Much.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Yay!
All the way